don't want to worry you unnecessarily. I don't want you to think that you're some kind of... I've made this point all the way through. You're not some kind of super loser, some madhead. We all suffer from stress. We all have hallucinations. It can be one-off. We can fix it. We can deal with it. We can make it better. I'm not in your life. I don't see all the things in your life. I've just got your one little comment. But I know, because you're human and I'm human, that we're suffering the same things. We're worried about the same things. We're struggling with the same things. We're all having to pay our bills. We're all having to wake up and, feel like we're not good enough. We're all having to do that. We're all having to look in the mirror and wish that we were 10 foot taller and teeth were shiny whiter, and all of us are struggling these same things. So I know you're struggling the same way as I am. So I'm not trying to say that you're down there and we help you up. We help together to pull together, and I want you to feel that it's okay. I've got that video, haven't I? It's okay, but this is okay. If it's happening, it's natural. It's something we can fix. Mental Health Monday this week. Last week I said how proud I was of you. That's going to arrive on Mental Health Monday as a video in its own right. Wanted to highlight this week that we've got the channel, of course, and it's growing. It's doing well. I'm pleased with it. Got this new thing I come up with. These new little thumbnails that I can just whack in before I make a dedicated thumbnail for everything. So you might see that Mental Health Monday thumbnail and logo a little bit in the future. And the other channels, we've got Ganji Kid, of course, which is where we upload absolutely everything. That I just upload it immediately onto YouTube, delay it a little bit because of the Twitch terms of service, so it's not immediately, like it has to go 24 hours delay or whatever. But that's Ganji Kid. That's where you find everything that we do on stream as like a massive archive. We've also got Ganji Pukawari Media, which is growing. Ganji Cuts, which is where we put the edits from stream. Ganji Kid Art Chat, which is where we upload things that are specifically centered around arts, feelings, culture, edited from stream. And then Mental Health Monday, that's what we're doing today. Battery exhausted. Yeah. It's gone down a bit of a pipe hole. We're going to resurrect it as Ganji Vegan one day. True Binaural ASMR is still in existence, and is the start point for today's episode. So that's why I wanted to say this. I've written a little thing. This is the ambient sound of hell for 2 hours. Binaural beats, sleep, relax, unwind, study. What the chuff is this? What the chuff is this, and what are we going on about today? Let's have a little look. Well, so far you can hear just like weird sound, can't you? If I just pause that there. This says you can't see it, it's only little. Let me do web browser, bring it up bigger. Still can't read it really. This says go to hell. Somebody left me a mean comment on one of my lovely ASMR videos. So I don't know what provoked them. And they said go to hell. And so I thought, oh, that's an interesting concept, isn't it? I'll use that, because whilst I can use the trolling and twist it to my advantage to make something from it, it's funny to me, to say, like, look, you inspired me. There you go. It's not what you wanted, is it? Another video. But I thought I'd use it it gave me a creative, burst in my mind, go to hell. And I made this soundscape, and I was looking into, it's a kind of, I'll just let it play a little bit while we're talking as well. Why the chuff not? It's a kind of joke. Turn that down a bit. It's a kind of joke, isn't it? It's a kind of like the ambient binaural beat, sleep, relax, study, 2 hours rain, 2 hours sleeping in a tent, 8 hours thing. It's a kind of joke on that front, spending time in hell as an ambience. But also, I'm going to pause it because I can't listen to it. But also, it's I thought there's Dungeons and Dragons people, they use ambience and soundscape. Oh, tap the microphone. They use ambience and soundscapes, so maybe someone might even chuff him or listen to it on YouTube. And not many people, I typed into the YouTube search thing, hell ambience or whatever, not many people had made a video about the ambient sound of hell. So I thought, well, if I make this, it's probably going to be seen at least, isn't it? And so I thought, rather than just chuff up a little joke, because the last one I did that was a joke on this theme of 8 hours sleep, relax, study was Bear Grylls drinks his own pee. I did 8 hours of that, but I don't think the hard drive on the computer could hack an 8-hour edit, so I had to cut it down to 2. But this ambient sound of hell was on that theme, but then I thought people might find it, they might listen to it, so why don't I just put a little bit of work in? Why don't I actually do a soundscape, like a good one? Because I like soundscapes, they're interesting and fun. So I got into Logic Audio. In the edit for this video, you will see Logic Audio. I will show you my Logic Audio. If I wanted some deep bass, some resonant area space, some like deep bassy sort of, I use slow down machine sounds, different things, like deep bassy rumbling sounds. I wanted some sounds of like torture, and this is bad things to think about, isn't it, if you're Mental Health Monday, but this is the context for what we're going to talk about today. Interestingly, of course, the images I've used are of classical artworks depicting hell. Hieronymus Bosch, I think is the author of this painting. I'm not certain. It certainly is of one of the images used in the video. These traditional images of devils and demons and things like that. So I wanted to get a feel of this. So what I did is I went on YouTube and I ripped some stuff of sometimes people screaming, sometimes animal sounds, different sounds. I started doing bits like that, started layering this up, made it long, made things stretched, repeated, echoed, resonant, whatever. Came up with concepts in my mind, like I can see in this image, so spaces, through spaces, fires, got some fire sounds in there. What would be nice, 8 hours relaxing a fire, it's 8 hours burning in now. So, and I will completely fess up to this, I did use a couple of human voices, and I did use, how do I want to describe this, content not for YouTube but masked within the soundscape, so you can't pick it out, slowed down, and but content not for YouTube that it creates this horrible ambience. So it's all in there and laid up in a soundscape. I did use some voices, and I used the voices of people I thought who probably would end up in hell. Like there's a little bit of Jimmy Savile in there. Honest to God, there is. I could pick it out of Logic Audio and show it you and play it you, which I might do for the edit. This is the file I've created for the ambient background sound of hell. You can see it says there at the top, ambient background sound of hell. And these are some of the sounds that are in there. So I'll just press play briefly, quickly. If I solo some bits, you'll be able to hear bits one at a time. This is the binaural beat. This is sort of haunting, isn't it? That's quite haunting. What's happening on this track is I've got a piece of audio which I've stretched out to make it longer. We've got EQs, we've got a space designer. Because I'm in OBS, I can't show you the actual effects units that are being used, but you can see on the very left of the screen there, it says spread, channel EQ, space designer. Look, I'll turn this on and then I'll turn the space designer and the echo on and off. So you can tell that's not ghost voices, it's just random, or seemingly random, it's noise, sounds that I've manipulated, stretched out, put on that like effect, and that's what's going on there. We've also got what it is it's very very stretched out syllables or sound. So if someone's saying yeah, then it might stretch out to yeah, and then of course I put on effects onto that. That's got a space designer, it's got EQ, it's got stereo spread, it's got echo, it's got delay. So that's that one. We've got more like this. And you can see that there's 2 tracks of that. If I solo them both, you can see they're both lit up now. Those 2 tracks are the same track, but they're just with slight differences in the frequencies and ranges that are being put through the EQ. So initially it's like, why have you got 2 of the same track? But then it's going to give you this sort of strange left and right balance, varying frequency thing. And that's going to push towards the ghost voice, isn't it? That's going to make you think there might be a voice when there's not, because it really is a voice, and it's been warped and changed and distorted and presented at different levels. What else have we got in here? We've also got some of this. Same sort of business. It's got effects, it's got delay, it's got all that reverb on it. And this final one here, this is Walking in the Snow, a binaural recording of Walking in the Snow. And originally it's quite nice, it gives you a nice crunch, crunch, nice thing. It sounds like a big mess, doesn't it? That's because I slowed it down, messed it up before I even started messing with it. So originally the Walking in the Snow binaural sounds like Walking in the Snow. You can find it on this channel, on True Binaural ASMR, but sorry, you can find it on the True Binaural ASMR channel, but with it all messed up, it sounds quite haunting and weird, doesn't it? And then in terms of voices, look, this one says Jim here. Like I said, I did actually use a couple of voices, little devilish fritters just peppered in there. Did you hear that one? That really was a voice. That really was a voice. I've just messed with it. I've given it Space Designer, Echo, EQ. There's two of them, so let's just turn off the second one and let's see if it sounds any better without the effects on it. See, you can clearly tell it's just a little clip. It's not a bit where you can hear a clear word, but it's just a little clip of someone saying something, isn't it? It's been cut out of where someone's saying something bigger, and it's just a few syllables and a little knocking noise. He's actually saying it was the bishop, but he's got a cigar in his mouth. So that's what that is. But when that's mixed in with all the other stuff, it's really difficult to break down and to work out, isn't it? When that's mixed in with all the other stuff. So it goes on like that. It's quite a long file. I repeat things, change things around, shift things about. So there you go. That's the official Background Sound of Hell mix. You can see I've created it here on Logic Audio. That's all created by me. Effects, it's all bits of sound that I've recorded or gathered, and I've stretched, I've warped them, and I've changed them. That's it in Logic Audio. We needed that for the edit. Back to the video. So that's what I did. I made that. That went well. We enjoyed that. I got some comments on it. I know, they're varying in opinion or whatever. Funny comments, great. Don't care. But this one I do care about. So let's pick this up here. Yo, what the sorry. There we go. Pop the old F word. Don't swear on stream. I don't think it's polite, but I just did it then by mistake. I'm sorry. It just hit me on why the first time I listened, it sounded so familiar, that feeling like I've been here before, that everything's going to be light, and I fell asleep to it. But I've talked to this same sounding entity before on those ghost talkbox apps on my phone. I had some actually trippy stuff come out of it a couple of times, but this voice, though, I remember him. Like he sounded so lost and confused, but he wouldn't talk with me, just kept moaning and whimpering and lost. So I just kept listening, like maybe I could help him. That's fucking... sorry. It says it there on the thing, I'm just reading it, sorry. That's effing crazy. Chuffing. That's chuff. I should have self-edited the word chuff into that. That's chuffing crazy. Now I'm wondering, is this an internal thing? Right, so I've replied to that, and hi, I made this soundscape. There's only a couple of real voices in the mix, occasional quips. Not the kind of lost and confused, but wouldn't talk with you and kept moaning, whimpering you describe. It's important to note that when you're falling asleep, your brain's kind of like a dreamlike state. You can imagine and dream things. Hallucinations are confusing and sometimes disturbing. They're also common and natural. I don't think it's very likely that you're communicating with anyone or anything through my sound mix, and I didn't put anything like that in here. There's a lot of different frequencies at play. Our brains are trying to look for patterns. It might not be healthy for you to listen to this soundscape. So that's what I've replied with, and some kisses. But I want to dig, I want to dig into that, don't I? I want to dig into that a little bit. And ta-da, we've got Mental Health Monday. So this is our jumping off point. Someone has listened to the soundscape, heard voices that then they're listening to deeper to try and seek more clarity on what these voices are, what this thing is. They're hearing it elsewhere as well. So that's what we're going to jump off with today. I'm going to move away from that horrible picture and let's put our Mental Health Monday back up. So this is what we're at today then. Ghosts versus psychosis. Oh, I've got it's a good one when I've got a full this is chocolate soy milk. I've written a little thing. We're going to get some websites up. We're going to talk through this topic of psychosis, ghosts and talk boxes. So let's read my little pre whatever you want to say so that people don't hate you. If you believe in ghosts, the psychic and the paranormal, I'm not here to argue or debunk you. Please be open-minded about mental health in the same way as you want people to be open-minded about ghosts or paranormal activities or whatever. So give this a chance, right? Just hear this out, let it settle, make up your own mind. That's the I'm not and then I've got to say my own personal one, which is anyone who knows me will know that I've attested or testified to have had psychic. We can talk about this in another video, I guess, in another episode. I don't know where I stand on ghosts and the psychic. I've had experiences which I could quite happily explain through scientific methodology, through saying I'm tired, my brain could have conjured it, but also I'm quite happy to say I definitely saw a ghost. So I've been there, seen that, had that. I've also heard things as I'm falling asleep. We've come to this from this ambient sound of hell video where someone was listening in to hear this voice, to see that I think I can hear that, I can recognise it. What is that? So I've been there where I've been listening at like 2 a.m. to things that I think I can hear because I'm paranoid and anxious, and we'll talk about that side of things a little bit later. But I've been there doing that, thinking it might be a ghost, thinking it might be the neighbours. Eventually got to figuring out exactly what I think it is. Thought it was me, really, think it was me. And it's not even unnatural. That's fine, it's normal, it's natural. We'll come on to that in a bit. So give this a chance. It's really important as well. I'm not here to say you're delusional, so I'm just going to pretend your delusions are real to make you feel better, like we've seen in Mental Health Monday, which is what we do here, Mental Health Monday every Monday. We've seen that if someone is delusional, that you don't sort of argue it out and say, no, it's silly, it's ridiculous, that can't be happening. But I'm going to stay relatively open-minded for everyone's sake, and I want you to understand that we're talking about this, and I'm specifically talking to the person who left this comment. I'm not highlighting their name and their backstory, and I'm not trying to dig into who they are. That's not what this is about. They've left the comment, it's raised the issue, we're talking about it in the group, okay? But really it's because I care about that person who left that comment, and I worry for their ongoing mental health, and we'll see why, and we'll talk about the different paths. So that's our overall no one can be offended by anything we say now. What can this person hear, and what's a talk box? I think we'll do what's a talk box, Should we do that? This is the news. Well, it's not really the news, is it? It's just this.
From this, like, Sarah, can you talk to me again? Sarah, can you talk to me again? We'd like to talk to you. Sarah, can you talk to us?
I got chills. That's good.
So she got chills. She's just got like it looks like a little radio. No, I haven't got chills. Sarah's not talking to us. She's got a little smirk on her face there that says, Sarah's not talking to us. What the talk box is, and people are going to get cross. I'm certain someone might find this. Initially, they might think, I don't know what this guy's saying. But like I said, be open-minded about ideas here. What the talk box seems to be to me is a radio, a transmitter. It, instead of tuned to a frequency that you might normally tune it to, it seems to be tuned to an open frequency, and there are varying degrees of talk box. I've got a machine in front of me that I'm running my microphone through. If I turn up the gain really loud, you'll hear like sort of ambient static. Some people run that through another machine to loop and echo and amplify these signals. They say it's signals to sounds. That, to me, that end of things, I've seen it on YouTube. I'm not going to bring up someone's video because I think it's just sensationalist and a bit silly, because if you are hearing these things, the amplification and anyone who understands sound effects would say, well, amplification and dubbing essentially isn't going to help hear these things. It's going to make it harder to hear these things. So these techniques are used to confuse the brain, I guess. But the simplest example of the talk box here is just it's receiving signal, but there's no tuning to the signal. It's like a broken radio, and during that, people believe they can hear voices. They believe they can record sections and clean it up and get a little loop of it, and you can hear a voice in that. It is, of course, really, really reasonably possible that some rogue wavelength, some like on the fringes of a spectrum of a radio broadcast, or somebody on there, zero Oscar, whatever, on the fringe of a spectrum, some interference, whatever. It's entirely possible human voices could be picked up. We'll look at this a little more in detail. So that's a talk box. I'm not dissing it too much, though. Obviously, I'm laughing about it here, and the person I'm making this video for is going to watch this, so I want to be really sure and clear about this. I'm not laughing at you. I used to do that. Essentially that. I used to sit awake at night. I'd heard this noise that I thought was something outside, or somebody talking or something. So I'd open the window and I'd try and be quiet and listen to what it was. And you know what? The more I tried to... Our brains fill in the blanks. Look, yeah. The more I tried to hear something and be quiet and hear it, the more I probably could, because there is sound outside. And the more, it's like a vicious cycle. The more I do it, the more I find in it, and the more so I'm not dissing you for this. I'm laughing about it in a way, because I think now, years later, in a more logical view, I see it as a little bit... I think, okay, people want to sell those boxes, that's for sure. Whether they work or not, once you've bought it, they've made the money, that's for sure. So people want to sell those boxes. And for this woman to say she's got chills when most of us can't really perceive anything of any note, that's where the humour is. So I'm not laughing at you like, oh, you're stupid. But I think there is some humour in this, in the spirit box. I hope so, anyway. But we're not here to rip the piss. This is the conversation. And we're going to switch to WebBubba browser, because you might want to see some of it where, like, it looked bigger. Oh, my old words while I'm using my brain there. So I like the conversation. It's a good website. It's their little tagline here: academic rigor, journalistic flair. So what they tend to do here, and we had a conversation last week about analysing media. What they tend to do here is they state some ideas and then they back it up with a study. So you can look into the science and say, okay, that's where the ideas come from. Fair enough. I like that. They're talking about hearing ghost voices relies on pseudoscience and fallibility of human perception. Again, big words and quite mean words in a way. Pseudoscience is like, oh, right, everything you believe is rubbish. I'm not here to say that, but pseudoscience is also something that can seem scientific, but really isn't valid. You can't repeat the experiments. You can't do... 0 kilobytes. Okay, this is important to note as well. We're still here, aren't we? We're still running. Let me just check you can hear me. You can always hear me. I'm always talking. Is important. Right, yeah. This is important to note. You're going to watch this and you're going to think, look, there's the spirits interacting with the stream. He's saying it's silly and the spirits are intervening. No. We always have problems with the kilobytes. Okay? We always have problems with... it's always the ghosts. It's always the ghosts. No. If ghosts wanted to communicate with me and interfering with my internet connection was their methodology, they'd be onto a loser, wouldn't they? It's not even a normal approved method of communication. Oh, but it's their only thing they can use. No, it would not. What would it annoys you? So maybe they're trying to... No. Just internet connections are unpredictable sometimes. Okay? Trust me. That's the most... We're going to read about it. It says it relies on pseudoscience and fallibility. It says that we're fallibility of human perception, what it says is that we sometimes make mistakes because we're human. Non-trivial numbers of Americans believe in the paranormal. These beliefs have spawned thousands of groups dedicated to investigating paranormal phenomenon and a proliferation of ghost... I'm going to have to cut that back for the edit. Investigating paranormal phenomenon and a proliferation of ghost hunting entries in the reality television market. Anecdotal evidence even suggests that ghost hunting reality TV shows have increased public openness to paranormal research, which usually entails a small group traipsing through reportedly haunted locales at night with various ghost hunting technologies. Audio recorders figure prominently in their researchers' toolkits, and then they come down here to describe these things that we talked about. These purported communications have been dubbed electronic voice phenomenon. The sounds are generally brief. Most examples consist of single words or short phrases. And there's some examples there which I'm not going to read because they're a bit mean. And we're going to come on to a little bit more of that in a second. I'm just going to pick up a couple of points here. The introduction there is setting a scene, a tone. And I want to ask you if you're suffering from this perception that you might be hearing a voice within a talk box or my video, which I don't believe there is a voice in my video, I really don't. This context of ghost hunting, ghost watch programs, ghost content on YouTube, that context needs to be addressed. It gets a lot of views. We had the exact thing, the ghost hunt, in our town. We live in Stratford-upon-Avon here on the Ganges-Warwick. It's lovely. It's very old. Shakespeare used to live here. I went to the same school as him. They went to his old house. They went to all these old places, you know, where they're old buildings for their ghost hunt, ghost watch. And for the first time ever, recorded ever, in the history of these old houses, which have tourists in day and night, all day going through, tour guides, tours, you know, all this business. First time ever, a ghost was able to move a spoon from one end of the room to the other, through it. From one end, like literally through a spoon. It wasn't a ghost, was it? Was it really? You know, the first time it happened on the day the ghost hunters were there with their equipment. It didn't happen between 1800 records began or whatever and now. I've been to that place many times. I've never seen any ghostly phenomenon whatsoever. The day they put the cameras on, boom, it happened. And it's most likely that these shows, they need a bit of sensationalism. I'll tell you a different story. I'm going big face for telling stories. My friend, he works in the media. Hello, Matt. And once, I say he works in the media, he runs his own trucking company. Once he was working on a program called Wheeler Dealers. They're not going to like that I reveal the secrets. Then I'm not under an NDA. He works on this program, and on the program they do up a car and then they sell the car for a profit. Wheeler Dealers, it's called. You might have a similar program in America. They do up a car, they buy a cheap car, they do it up, they sell it for a profit. And in the program, when it came to selling the car, they didn't have anyone to sell the car to, but they needed to finish the program. Right, they needed to finish the program. So Matt, who was there as a production assistant or camera person or whatever it was brought in as the man who was buying the car. He went on camera and he said, "Oh look, I love the car. Oh, I'll give you 4,000 for it. Oh no, 3.5. You know, did that. Shook hands, did the deal. Never bought the car. They chuffed that off." So when you're making a TV show, sometimes you tell lies to make the show work. Okay, and if you're making a TV show about paranormal activity, then you chuffing well better have some, at least, things moving around in shot. Something had better happen. It doesn't have to be a real ghost. It doesn't have to really be. It just has to happen, and for there to be a question mark in people's minds. What was that? You don't explain it. Oh, that was just so and so threw a spoon. You just say a spoon moved. What happened? And then cut the bit where Bob walks in with the spoons. You know, cut that. It just has to happen. So this context, this media, I think if you're serious about ghost hunting, if you're serious about the paranormal, if you're serious about these voices on the talk box, you need to first of all discard all that media. Stop watching them. Forget them. They're not helping your brain and your scientific analysis of things. They're just in it for their own views and clicks. YouTube's even worse. Fewer regulations on what you should and shouldn't say. You know, you don't have to even... In the UK, I don't know if it's the same all over the world, but there are at least some regulations on claims that can be made, on things that you say on television, you know, and misleading and stuff like that. Not really the case on YouTube. You can do what you like. There are rules, but, you know, these channels are doing whatever, and you can... It might be in your interests to come up with a piece of evidence, a bit of a sound, a bit of a thing that makes people question mark, and that sells your clicks and your views and whatever. Again, all that media, get rid of that out of your daily life, because again, it's not helping you. They're using your confusion to try and gather clicks. So if you want to know really deep down what's happening paranormal wise, if there is a voice, if there's not a voice, you're worried in your own mind because you think it might be your mind, but it might be real, and you don't want it to be your mind, so you'd rather it was real. Or is it? Because if it's real, then it's scary and it's a demon. All this sort of business. That confusion is being fed on by that media, by those YouTube channels, by that ghost hunter documentary thing. So you need to push all that aside and bear in mind that if I sit and watch all that, if I went on a binge of ghost videos, when I go walking my doggy, everything I see is going to feel like what's that? If I spend all day watching videos about fires, then I'm going to be worried there's going to be a fire. Do you know what I'm saying? So having something on your mind like that, certainly when you're dealing with something that could be mental, could be spiritual, you need to find out. None of that can help you. And I think that it probably, in lots of cases, is part of the touch fuse, just a silly little video about a talk box, the EVP websites that we here, it's talking about EVP research. All this information confusion, it can definitely lead. It's hard for me to say this because I'm not a mental health professional. I'm not a doctor, so I'm not going to say that reading these websites can cause psychosis. I can't say that, but I can certainly say that it opens the door to lots of funny ideas that you then contemplate and can't get answers to, and in some cases can lead down a psychosis style thing. And we're going to look at psychosis at the end of this episode and what it really is and this and that. It doesn't mean that you're mad and smashing things and dangerous to the public. It might just simply mean that sometimes you see or hear things, like we all do, that we're not sure what they are, that our brains turn into this and that, and that it could be stress, it could be an episode. We'll look at all these things later, so don't worry too much about that now. Don't think, I'm losing my mind, I'm going mad, oh no, I'm psychotic. Just understand that symptoms of psychosis and this whole ghost hunting thing seem to go hand in hand, so you don't want to be causing yourself unnecessary ills. The chain of evidence for the most purported EVP makes hoaxes difficult to rule out, but let's assume that many of these sounds are not deliberate fraud. In some instances, alleged EVP are the voices of the investigators or interference from radio transmissions, and it's actually got a link there. And so this is somebody who's done the study of the tape recordings, and somebody believes they represent dead people, and they've discovered that the voice phenomenon, what does it say this? None of the voices heard appeared to establish their origin as paranormal. So, there's the whole thing. If you want to read it, the citation is from Listening to the Rowdy Voices Journal of the Society. It's all there. This is what I like about this website, is that especially when we're talking about these sort of things, whether it's real, whether it's not, the fact that there's some actual evidence to state that this is a fact. Sometimes those sounds in the EVP are investigators or interference. Sometimes that happens. So there's an actual fact. We know that happens. We've studied, we've seen, we've recorded. Fact, it's happened. Problems that indicate shoddy data collection practices. Other research has suggested EVP has been captured under acoustically controlled circumstances in recording studios. What are the possible explanations for these? So it's got the research here where someone hasn't got the interference, where they've proved that they're even in controlled environments. They've got a controlled environment and they think they can still hear some of this EVP. So then we're not saying it didn't happen. Look, we're saying we've done a study and we can see it happened. Okay. So what's the possible explanation for that happening? The critical leap in EVP research is the point at which odd sounds are interpreted as voices that communicate with intention. So what that basically says is that we're already together as a group here. We're already saying these are voices. I don't want someone to feel they're being victimised on YouTube, but I want to make it clear that we're talking to somebody directly to try and help. The critical leap that we're all assuming, it's said here, is the point at which odd sounds are interpreted as voices. So that communicate with intention as well. That's another good point. So we're making up already. We've heard something that we don't know what it is, and we're saying it's definitely a voice, and we're saying it's communicating and it's got an intention that it's trying to say certain something. It's not just random, and it's not just a random sound that we hear. We've already categorized all these things, and I think it's important, like they're saying here on this thing, just let's pull that back a step, because we're not sure, are we? With question mark, is that a voice? Is it a voice? Once you've decided, yeah, it is, everything you hear is going to be the voice. You're going to be able to say, oh, it sounds a bit like they're saying this. I can't hear the full sentence, but it's like that. So then, as Snip said earlier, you're going to fill in some blanks. Let's try and pull that back. Is it even a voice? What's Snippy Snip saying here? I had a toy piano keyboard that picked up a preacher's sermon from radio transmission. Pretty scary as a kid to hear him yelling about the devil. See, there you go. And that's a factual thing that happened to you. So next time you hear a voice, you might think it's the devil, or you might think, well, I remember having this toy keyboard and that, but maybe not everyone had a toy keyboard. So it's a spectrum of confusion, isn't it? Yeah, really interesting. I wish I had that exact. Well, it wouldn't work for me, would it? Because I don't live where you live, so I wouldn't pick up the same things, would it? But I quite enjoy playing the keyboard and hearing him chat about the devil. And again, I want to say this as well. If you're watching this and you're reading into this comment and the word devil's come up, and it's not that. If you're reading into my lighting, I'll turn it white. If you're reading into my claim that I'm ASMR Jesus, don't. It's just colloquial, cultural terminology. There's no deeper sort of scary background here. I've just got a light that we bought for stream. That's all it is. It's just got that. Simple answer, simple thing. Simple thing. We're not going to jump to any funny conclusions about the fact that it's a light and a comment, okay? Paranormal investigators typically decode the content of EVP by arriving at consensus among themselves. EVP websites advise paranormal researchers to ask themselves, is it a voice, are you sure? Or to share results among fellow investigators and try and prevent investigator bias when reviewing data. It's a difficulty in the practice. There's a difficulty there. You're all relying on each other to confirm or disprove what you think or don't think. We know, not even going to dig into what they're saying here, but I'm just going to say, we know that the general mass consensus isn't always the correct answer. We know that generally society can maybe make mistakes, can think it's this and it might not be that. The Twitter mob might not always be burning the right witch. So that's an interesting concept. Research in mainstream psychology has shown that people will readily perceive words in strings of nonsensical speech sounds. And I'll bring that up because you want to see it. Phantom words. This image appears as... Sorry, excuse me. There you go. This image appears as an eye, though in reality it's a trillion-mile-long tunnel of glowing gases known as the Helix Nebula. We see visual objects that correspond to those that are familiar to us. And long story short, this is the science. Phantom words. 2019, Oxford University Press. How Music and Speech Unlock the Mysteries of the Brain. 1995, Musical Illusions and Paradoxes. I've actually listened to the Musical Illusions and Paradoxes sometimes. They're very interesting. Let's see if we can hear a few now. I don't really want to delve into this too much. Oh, you need not headphones, so it won't work. But there it is. It's interesting. It's available to you all through the prism of the first... Let me copy this. Copy. It will be in the description of the chuffer, won't it? Scientifically, trust me on this. Or don't. Dig into it yourself. But we make up those sounds in our brain. We're designed to. We're human beings. So, as Snip said earlier, and as you have experienced, if you've looked at the clouds and you've started to form them into shapes. When my dog died, I was really upset. I can hear another dog now making a... Did you hear that? That doggy doing a chuff then. Hang on. What's going on? So when Nathan died, I felt really sad, my dog. And after it, I remember being in the garden one of the days, looking up at the sky, and the cloud formation seemed to just sit. It was drifting towards me, seeing the shape of... it's like his head. It was just his head. I could see it. I could see him in the clouds, and I didn't feel like terrible and oh my god, and it didn't feel like my dead dog was haunting me, but it did feel like I was getting some sort of cosmic message, And now you can say it's silly. You can say it's just your brain wanted to feel better, so it made the shape feel like that for you, and someone else might not have seen it. And they're clouds, they're not, but for me it felt pleasingly spiritual to have this feeling. And then it was quite weird. What happened was it morphed, as clouds do, into different things. And I remember thinking to myself, am I trying to make sense of this here? Am I trying to force something on this that's not really there? Because I felt it looked more like a deer then. It started to look, the antlers started to, as if it was running through and I remember that Nathan used to love chasing deer in the forests. And I got this feeling to myself, like, in some way, in this cosmic blend, that in some way his spirit energy could be reincarnated as a deer. And whilst I was feeling the pain of the loss of my friend, he was already able to have lived 100 lives running through woods and experiencing things as a deer. Sometimes I look up at the sky, and if I think it looks like a dolphin, I'll think, now he's having a go as a dolphin. And if I think it looks like a bird, I'll think, now he's trying out flying on the wing. And he's trying out these different reincarnations, and he's enjoying himself. That's the sort of spiritual feeling I got. I made sense of those clouds. I've put some ideas on them. Now, you can believe or not believe that they really were there. It doesn't matter. It helped me at the time. So I'm going to make this point now, though, is that I'm not now spending all my time studying clouds. I'm not now some sort of cloud psychic. I'm not going to sort of lose myself in an obsessive... I'm not going to spend out all my days outside staring at clouds, being obsessive in something that nobody else in the world believes is really happening, and claim to be the world's first leading cloud psychic. And I'm not going to lose myself to that. I'm going to re-ingratiate myself into the real world, the rest that we engage in this, whether you want to talk, because we're talking spiritual in terms today, aren't we? So we can talk in spiritual terms, in heaven and hell and things like that, but we are today, day to day engaged, whether you believe in dark matter or other parallel universes or whatever. Right now we're engaged in this physical world. I'm talking to you through the internet, you're listening, so I'm going to engage with this while I'm here doing it. When I die, if that spiritual thing, if I'm in that, then I'll find it out then, won't I? I'm not going to worry myself now about something that nobody has been able to actually figure out or gather any photographs of or evidence or whatever. No one's been able to answer that. I'm not going to worry myself too much about that now, because there's things I need to do. I need to put a little table in there, and I need to feed the doggy and walk him in. So I'm not going to lose myself to those concepts. But at the time, there was some comfort to me, and there's still a confusion to me. If you want me to sit down and say to you, was your dog in the cloud? On one day, I'd say absolutely not. He's not in the clouds communicating with me. That's silly. If I was in a job interview, right? Let's say I was in a job interview for a serious position where I had to look after kids or something, I'd probably say, no, of course. It's just a flight of fancy that made me feel better. I don't believe my dead dog is watching over me in the clouds, because I don't want to sound like I'm loopy. But in my heart of hearts, there's still a part of me that thinks maybe he was. Maybe I'll find out one day. Not today. Maybe I don't need to know today. Maybe that's enough. But yeah, I don't have to find a crystallized answer. I can have a bit of a feeling one day, a bit of a feeling another day. I'm human. But the important thing is that I'm not out in the garden writing down and drawing pictures of clouds and claiming to predict the future off them, and being locked up for losing my grip on what everyone else perceives to be as reality, isn't it? That's quite important too. I've gone on about that a bit too long now. This article now, and I'm not going to read everything in the article, but it goes on to say that in nature you would hear natural tones, like birds, predators, and now you've got other tones like machinery and electromagnetic interference, and that naturally you would look for sounds like a predator, so your brain is picking up on whatever frequencies and wavelengths and piecing it together to make what you want to hear or should hear, or in a hypervigilant state would look out for. In the Perceptual Research Lab, they conducted an experiment to examine how expectations might influence the perception of EVP. So they go another layer here, which is to say that if you believe you're going to hear a voice, do you hear a voice? If you believe you're not going to hear a voice, do you hear a voice? Does it matter what your preconceived ideas are? Does it matter about things that influence you? And it turns out that it does. So that's there as well. There's percentages, there's stats, you know, whatever. What it drives them to is this perceptual explanation of EVP. And I believe, because this comment, the original comment that's brought us here from the ambient sound of hell, is it an internal thing? They were wondering, is it an internal thing? Internal meaning in my mind, in your mind. You know, is it something I'm hearing in my mind, or does everyone hear it? The perceptual explanation of EVP, the conclusion, and they've got this picture of the toast, the Jesus toast. That's their funny picture of Jesus toast. It's not the real Jesus toast, of course. The real Jesus toast is a bit more subtle, isn't it? A bit more, hey, that should get its own mention of Jesus. The real Jesus toast, the toast with kanji on it. Yeah, it looks like me, doesn't it? It looks a bit like me. The real Jesus toast is a lot more subtle. It's just shades of colour that appear to look like Jesus. But when you consider how many pieces of toast have been made over the years, how many pieces of toast, it's not surprising that at least one of them has got a slightly human, slight shading to it, is it? But it turns out people believe it. Anyway, look, we all tend to do it. We find these collage idea characteristics. We see Jesus in the toast. We all do it. So answering the question, is it in your mind? Yes, but it's in all of our minds. So if you say to someone, do you hear the voice as well? They might listen and go, actually, you know what? I kind of do hear a voice. That's weird, isn't it? But do you remember that thing, Yanni and Laurel? Do you remember that one, Yanni and Laurel?
Laurel, 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 Laurel.
Or do you remember the dress where it was yellow but it was blue? You remember those things? We all saw them, but we were all confused. So asking someone, is this in my head or is it on the tape or is it... It's a bit of both. It's in all our heads. We all get confused. It's natural to be human, to make sense of confusion, to hear a distorted melange. And what I've done in this soundscape, going back to it, talking about it, is I've deliberately done that. I've used low frequencies, medium frequencies, high frequencies. I've used human voices slowed down. I've used human voices sped up. I've used rumbling tones. I've used, you know, and I've deliberately put them pitched so that they're over there, and there's some binaural, and you've got the binaural beats underpinning it all. And, you know, of course, you are hearing what you think might be the voice from your talk box. But of course it's in your head. So do you see what I'm saying? It's both. The trick here, we'll come to this in a minute. The trick. Well, we need to talk about what's the harm, and then I'll tell you about what to do about it. The trick, you know, what to do about it. But first of all, we need to do this. So, research from cognitive psychology shows paranormal believers may be especially prone to misperceiving chance events. So if you believe in the paranormal, then you're more likely to misperceive, you're more likely to see Jesus in the toast, essentially, where people can explain why you see some mystic because you believe in that. That's proven. What are the chances, they say, but if you add up all the slices of toast you see over the days and weeks of months in a lifetime, it becomes inevitable that you'll encounter some of these human-like configurations. I said that earlier. It seems quite common sense to me, but Darren Brown talked about this in one of his books. It was really interesting. Have you ever been like on holiday or in a new city and you run into someone that you haven't seen in ages that you know, and it's like, wow, what, out of all the people in all the world, I've run into you? Like, that can't just be chance. Like, people say, oh, things happen for a reason, it must be fated, you know, I bumped into you. But in reality, if you do a statistical analysis of this, number of people in the world, number of people that travel, number of people you know, or at least recall meeting, and probability of meeting them if you travel somewhere else, the likelihood, if you spent a week, 2 weeks, 3 in a new place, the likelihood is it's not even that unlikely. It might be 1 in 5 or 1 in 10. I can't remember the exact stat, but it's actually always at Disneyland. There you go. But the likelihood is that somebody else that you know in your life might visit somewhere that you also might visit. It's not that unlikely. It's quite likely, really. The unlikely thing would be if they turn up at your house, I guess. I don't know. But, you know, the fact that you're out there and mingling, and you see someone else in the world that is out there and mingling, and you know them, and they're from a similar culture in a similar place, and it's not that unlikely, but you see it as a human through this prism as being the most remarkable thing that could ever happen. Because I'll tell you why you pick it up and you see it like that, is because it is, in that word, remarkable. It's something that, unlike every other person that walks past you, you can go, oh, bang, know that one. That's something in my brain. It's a flag. That's a flag in my brain. All the other information's drifted past. I don't remember all the people I saw on the street, but that one, I knew that one. Like, your brain grabs hold of it and makes it seem important and big. So, similarly, paranormal investigators record a practically limitless amount of audio and use all manner of sound processing techniques, including filtering the sounds. Inevitably, they're able to find samples of audio that sound like a voice. If you do it enough, you'll get a result. They're basically saying, if you record enough white noise, you'll get some interference or something, or your brain will find something you can pick up on. Assuming some of these voice-like sounds can't be attributed to shoddy data collecting practices, their actual sources likely run into the spectrum from ambient environmental noise to electrical interference to audio processing artifacts. If the listener's intently expecting to hear a person, virtually any sound can meet that expectation. One writer aptly suggested that EVP are like an auditory ink block test. That's an interesting point, isn't it? The ink block test. The Rorschach. You know what the ink blot test is, isn't it? They hold up the pictures, they all look like willies, don't they? Let's see if you can hear that while I say it quietly. They all look like willies. No, they don't, do they? They all look like feminine parts, probably. Now, thinking about it now, they probably all look like feminine parts to me. Tough, strong man. They certainly don't mind it being tucked in. Look, anyway, the ink blot tests, aren't they? So if we can see things in ink blots, and we know that they're ink blots, they're not communications from the dead, they're not like some spiritual mystical way, they're just random ink blots, and our brain forms that. We know that happens. I'm not saying it's silly to suggest that EVP, you want to hear from the dead, you want to find something interesting, you want to pick up on it, your brain's telling you, whoa, I heard something there. Your brain's telling you, is that a threat or a thing? I don't know that. I'm figuring it out. Your brain's all this is happening. So it's not silly to think like this. It's human and natural. The tendency for EVP investigators to hear a voice, a meaningful sound, and this is important again, a meaningful sound with agency and intention. So quite often you'll hear little sound clips, and I'm not picking out these sound clips, I'm not showing you lots of examples so that you can find the one that's, I'm sure people will say, oh, but I found this one's different to all the others and this one's more unique. I'm sure there's people out there that have got really valid recordings, and there's other people that are trying to confuse you for clicks and whatever. Not in a specific context, but in a general sense, of all the voices you think you've heard, and especially if it's you listening to this and it's you that left the comment and listening to your talk box and your hell video and are worried and what, consider this: can you consistently hear a voice with agency and intent? Is there a consistency to that? Right? That's important, because sometimes we try and add that intent, add that agency. That's the key bit. That's the consciousness, isn't it? That's the ghost. If it's just a word, if it's just a random sound, if it's just like falublums, then okay, it might sound like someone saying falublums, but who would want to say falublums and why? It's nothing, is it? But if someone's saying like mean things or specific things with intent, then you kind of think, oh, it could be, and then you look for that intent more, don't you? And certainly if you're worried about the intent of a voice, a disembodied voice, that can be quite scary as well. So then that plays into it as well. If you're feeling more scared, your brain's looking for the threat. Very interesting. Amplified by the suggestion of a paranormal context, as I just said, and I'll click that so you can see. Context-induced paranormal experiences support for Horan and Lang's model of haunting phenomena. So someone has written a paper to support somebody else's model of haunting phenomena. It's all in there. What? Access? Hang on, wait. Institutional login through your institution. There's a lot of other references there to read through, but I think that's locked behind a paywall. I'm not certain on how academic research is handled in all parts of the world, but I think that was locked behind a paywall, and if so, that's a different story entirely that we should be angry about, because academic research should just be available to everyone for free. But yeah, so there's some academic research that supports the idea that it might be in your head. Look at them all there, all their kit, all that, taking it seriously. They're not all loops, are they? They're not all Fruit Loops, are they? Go web browser, look at them. They're not all psychotic. Suffering psychosis is what I'm about to suggest, isn't it? I'm about to talk about psychosis, aren't I? Let's just look at your chat for a second. I run into people I've had a dream about. I only remember the dream because I saw the person. Oh yeah. But that's exactly the thing. I know that I'm a little bit late on your chat here, but I'm going to just say that's exactly the thing. You probably dream about more people, but you forget it because you don't remember your dreams that easily. But if you saw the person you dreamed about every time, you'd be, oh my God. But it's probably likely that you see people in your dreams and you see people in reality. And the times that those two things happen, you know, in a similar time scale, you're like, oh, I dreamed about you today or yesterday, and now I've seen you. Brain says it's important, but really, you dream about some people relatively constantly, like every week, probably you dream about someone, and you see people every week. So at some point, these things are going to, you know, cross over. The non-native cardinal bird that visited my balcony after my cardinal loving family member. Oh wait, okay, this is, yeah, I was laughing then because I thought that you were going to be telling a joke about it seemed non-native cardinal, but yeah, I absolutely, right, after my granddad died, it was he used to say hello magpie all the time, hello magpie, whenever we saw a magpie, hello magpie. And after he died, I was seeing these magpies everywhere. Yeah, I'm sure, absolutely. And I don't, in my heart of hearts, I believe that some part of the spirit of my grandfather was able to influence, you know, part of his love, the spiritual love of God, their love for me, my perceptions in the world. Some of that was able to, like, magic dust come together, and, you know, I believe that. But at the same time, I just kind of think it's also coincidental that I see magpies, because, like, they do exist. So I believe in your non-native cardinal bird visiting your balcony. I absolutely believe in it. And I know that we need these things in a way. We're going to come on to this in a little bit. So I don't want to discredit that. But I also want to say that, for balance, that in the same way as I think I also see magpies around, because I do, that it's possible that non-native birds sometimes alight on your windowsill and you don't give a monkeys because you're not bothered, because you're not sad and you're just watching the telly, and, you know, you ignore that one. Things happen that we don't notice. but yeah, I'm not going to say don't carry that with you either. You know, I'm not going to say that don't. I'm going to say absolutely believe that in your heart, because I believe those things in my heart. The trick is, as I was going to say, we're going to come on to this in a bit. The trick is not to lose yourself in the study of non-native bird species as if they were giving you messages. The trick is that you go on to live a normal life and you have your spiritual moment, but you can carry with you in your heart for solace and strength, but that you're not trying to speak to a bird for future guidance. Do you know what I mean? The important thing is not to lose yourself down that. So we've seen these people. They're not mad, though. They're not mad. They're scientific. They've got their instruments. They're looking for voices, paranormal. They're not mad people. They're not losing it. They're not psychotic. Any of us could become psychotic. Any of us could have a bit of a stressful time and start to hear things. Maybe some of them do. But what I'm trying to point out is that we're not talking about, I hear something in my talk box, I'm a looper. What we're going to go on to talk about is psychosis. We're going to talk about psychosis, but I want to make it clear to you that if you're suffering in this way, or if you're one of these people, or if you're looking at these people, and well, they're not, are they? That's fair. They're not psychotic. But psychotic does not mean that you're running around, talking to the woods, talking to the elves, like smashing heads. It doesn't mean that. We all have moments of psychosis, I would suggest, through our lives. It's sometimes something as simple as falling asleep and waking up just before you fall asleep. Something as simple as that. Who knows? So I've said that now. The ghosts that visit me at the cemetery would have been a hallucinogenic plant that was moving outside my open window. Yeah, there's lots of other alternatives, aren't there? And certainly, I'll say this, that in my time, I've experimented with certain different plants which we're not allowed to talk about on YouTube or Twitch terms of service, I think. But I've experimented with things, and they do make your mind feel different, don't they? So certain paranormal activities that I felt more connected to or akin with, I felt like, in some way, I'll just say, like magic mushrooms, they grow in the ground, don't they? So you can just pick them. You shouldn't. But, something like that, you might think, well, you can't take any evidence from that, can you? Because if someone's taking magic mushrooms, then they obviously are not a credible witness. But other people might say, oh, yeah, but the magic mushrooms open you up to the spirit world. So where do you draw that blurry line, Moments of psychosis talking to my cat. Where do you draw that blurry line? What we're going to go and see here, look, they're all having fun doing their EVP research. It bears hallmarks of pseudoscience. You can read about that there. What they're basically saying is that objectivity is equated with the use of a technical recording device, but subjectivity permeates the critical step of interpreting what sounds mean. So what they basically say is that you can all say you think you hear it's a voice, but I can say it's a dolphin, and you can say it's a dog, and who can prove anything? Another characteristic of pseudoscience is the lack of integration with related areas of inquiry. There's a rich history of using experimental methods to examine auditory perception, but enthusiasts are either unaware or ignorant of the relevant work. So what they're saying is that there's a lot of study done, but the people who are interested in ghosts aren't really reading into scientific study about auditory hallucination. They're not interested in that, they're interested in ghosts. So there's quite a lot of answers there if you want to dig into it. But they are basically writing it off as pseudoscience, as not... Again, let's look up pseudoscience because it's fair. Let's do this. Copy. Google. Bad Google. Ecosia is better, but this will give it you quick. Falsely or mistaken claimed regarded as being based on science. So they're saying it's definitely not science. They're saying it seems like science and people mistake it for science. And I think that's because they're using these what look like scientific devices. But it's not a science, they're saying here. And the people who are saying it are the academic rigor, journalistic flair. They're the science-based journalists. That's what they're into. So there's their opinion. It's only one opinion, of course. But I like to... I'm not an expert. I'm not an expert in the paranormal, nor am I an expert in auditory phenomena recording. I know a bit. I've got my little desk there. I've got my nice microphone. I'm not an expert in sound pressure and waves. I'm not an expert. I know enough about stuff to do things, but I'm not an expert, am I? So these people are. They've read into the things written by the people that are, and they've come to conclusions. I'm quite happy to lean on that and say, okay, if that's what they think, and I'm going to read into it myself. I have done a bit to bring in this episode. I'm quite happy to sort of agree that they might be making a fair judgment. And if you don't believe this, if you're oh no, they're trying to debunk me and I don't, then okay, you don't have to believe it, but that's what they've said. That's that's a resource for you to look into then and make your own mind up. Many forms of popular entertainment require the suspension of disbelief, and viewers of paranormal reality shows are hopefully tuning in for the entertainment rather than the scientific value of these programs. We've all been there, haven't we? You don't believe in ghosts, you don't believe in the Headless Horseman or whatever, but you watch the thing and you feel the chills, and it might not even be a paranormal reality show, it might even be a film, like a horror film, and you feel the scary and the horror, but in your right mind when you go to sleep, Freddy Krueger's not going to invade your nightmares. There are many important public issues, however, for which pseudoscientific beliefs have harmed public discourse. They've got a link there, and I get it, if you're not credible but you are holding a lot of sway with the public, that can be dangerous. But I'm going to go further than this, and they're talking about popular opinion and scientific credibility and stuff. They're not really hitting on the thing I wanted to hit on here. Where's the harm? A good ghost story may hold entertainment and even cultural value, but the popular portrayal of pseudoscientific practices as science may be detracting from efforts to cultivate a scientifically literate public, they're saying. Their big overarching problem is if you believe this stuff that's nonsense, then you're not scientifically literate, so you're going to not understand things properly in the world, and you're not going to you're going to maybe believe other nonsense. And this is, you know what? I'm going to say something. I'll read your comment first before I say something really outrageous. No, I'll say the outrageous thing first. Big face. Outrageous. This is Donald Trump said a lot of silly stuff, didn't he, when he was president? Said a lot of things that weren't science, that weren't true, and people were like, "Oh, I think I believe this now, and I believe that, and who knows what." Who can know what? And the idea is to confuse people enough that they don't know what's real. So, the real things that are happening, the bad things, they can't be angry about, and you get away with the money. So that's been happening in the real world, hasn't it? So it is harmful. What's the harm? First, a little note on psychics and mediums. We're not really going on about this today. We're not really talking about psychics, are we? We're not really talking about someone who tells you they can hear your dead grandmother. Obviously, there are skeptics to that sort of thing, and they've got a lot of evidence to say it's all a bit silly. What's the harm in psychics? And I'll tell you what's the harm in psychics. There's loads of stuff here, loads. It's a real interesting breakdown of specific people on reality TV shows saying specific things. I'll tell you what the harm is. The harm is people are grieving. When you're grieving, you're vulnerable. And people use that state to manipulate you into essentially giving them money. Now, if they're doing this for free, if they're a free service, then it's less dangerous. Maybe they're manipulating you for another reason. But if they're asking you for money to talk to your dead relatives, then they're exploiting your grief for money. That's what's happening. And I don't have to go into that deeply. It's covered in culture, isn't it? At this point, you either believe in the psychics or you believe in the debunkers. But you don't need me, Scotty Hottie, to fix that for you, do you? You don't need me to deal with that. I wanted to say this, so I'm going to say this. It's going to be said. Scotty's going to say it. There's a danger of religion in that you can't discount people's opinions. Big face. You shouldn't want to discount people's opinions, of course, but the problem with what we're talking about here in terms of a paranormal, a psychosis, and we're going to come on to psychosis. God, chuff, I better get on to psychosis in a minute. You're going to come on to psychosis in a minute. But if someone is strongly religious and it's part of the religion that these things exist, be they angels or demons, it's hard for you to say, okay, you're allowed to maintain your beliefs, but this particular incident might be something different, might not be that belief manifest. It's hard because you're trying to sort of fight against their beliefs, maybe. So the danger of religion in this context is, whilst religion can be a real solace to people, it can also be the source of some quite strange ideas that we, as people who are trying to help people work through mental problems, stresses causing dysfunctions, hallucinations, whatever, you can't sort of say, no, hang on. That's a bit, it's part of the religion. It's not silly, it's really serious. So that's the thing I've said. So that was Skeptical Inquirer. That's going bye-byes. Paste. Go. This is just straight up Google. Web browser. Straight up Google. Grief and talking to the dead, I typed in. Grief, earlier on, I typed in. Grief and talking to the dead. And I thought it brought up a couple of funny things. First of all, is talking to my dead loved one normal? Comforting ways to stay connected with someone after they're dead. Speaking with the dead is an effective way of mourning. Talking to a bereaved person, that's the person, not to the dead people. But a lot of these are about talking to the dead people. And I was like, well, I thought we were going to talk about psychosis. I thought it was bad for you to talk to dead people. And I thought that if you were doing it, it could be a psychosis. It turns out no. It turns out it's actually a part of the grief process. We've done a video on grief. I didn't bring up talking to the dead in the video. We talked about it in general terms throughout this broadcast, that you can be communicating or feel you are being communicated to through the spiritual aura of the world. So those concepts have come to the fore here, and I thought it was going to be the opposite. I thought it was going to say, no, don't talk to dead people. It's making you mad, you mad head. But no, it's actually quite comforting and part of the grief cycle. Here are some articles, and all the articles are from magazines, so I'm not going to open any of them. Teen Vogue, Marie Curie, Vice, but they're talking about it. It's there, so that's cool. And then these ones. Speaking out loud to a loved one who has passed is helpful for many processing grief. That's there. That's interesting. Can the deceased send messages? This is the one I wanted to type. Yes, they can now. That's Google. So I don't want to confuse you. But officially, Google, yeah, the dead can speak to you. No, look, it's the newest feature, future messages. It allows you to send messages to your loved ones after you've passed. Whose idea was that? It's a feature. It's a feature of someone's software. If you want to get into that, fine. But if you're asking Google, can the dead talk to you, and you're finding the answer is yes, it turns out that it's a feature of future messages allowing you to send messages to your loved ones after you've passed. I don't know, personally, I think they're going to find that possibly difficult to deal with, disturbing. I've got 2 different websites to look at for Psychosis. They're fairly simple. And we're not, as I say, we're not suggesting that if you have heard voices in the past that you have psychosis. We're not suggesting that if you hear voices now in your talk box or whatever that you're psychotic. We're not saying you need to be sectioned and injected and locked away. What we're saying is it's very normal. It happens to basically all of us from time to time. Someone who develops psychosis will have their own unique set of symptoms and experiences according to their particular circumstances, but in general 3 main symptoms are associated with a psychotic episode: hallucinations, delusions, confused and disturbed thoughts. Hallucinations. Hallucinations are where someone sees, hears, smells, tastes or feels things that do not exist outside their mind, but you don't know because you think it's real. So you can't, this is the thing that's happening with, is that voice in the voice box or am I hearing it in my head? Is it a voice, is it someone over the fence or is it me in my mind? To you it's real and you're confused and you're having to try and work out what is which thing. So when you're listening to the voice box, it's natural to want to listen to it more and to say, okay, let's is it real? Can I, if I turn it up louder, can I really, it's natural to go there, but not healthy if we're talking about hallucinations. Maybe using our mindfulness to bring us back into the now is more healthy, but it's difficult because sight is seeing colours, shapes or people. Well, sounds, hearing voices or other sounds. Touch, feeling touched when there's nobody there. Smell, an odour that other people can't smell. Taste, a taste when there's nothing in the mouth. So it's all the senses as well. It's can be all encompassing. Who knows? Delusions. A delusion is where a person has an unshakable belief in something untrue. So this can stem from the hallucination. It can lead into a delusion. A person with persecutory delusions may believe an individual can't use my words. A person with persecutory delusions may believe an individual or organisation is making plans to hurt or kill them. It can really worry you, and if you're feeling worried and anxious, then this delusion is going to feel really serious and you're going to want to take steps to prevent it. The simple thing, Snips is not delusional, but she's got a weapon. Things you fear for real lead you to take actions, but the actions that you take in preparation of something that might not really happen. It's not a delusion, but it's not far away from sitting there worrying about the things that you worry about to conjuring up the delusions. It's not far away. And if you're under stress, if you're not sleeping properly, if your brain's having difficulty processing things, then there you go. And as we said earlier about misinformation, confusion, Donald Trump saying strange things on the Twitter, it's even a political tactic these days to confuse people. The more confused the people are, the less they can make really strong informed decisions, So yeah, delusions here, and they're concerning. A person with grandiose delusions may believe they have power or authority. They may think they're the president of a country or have the power to bring people back from the dead. So psychosis here, hearing a little voice on a voice box, this doesn't sound the same. This isn't the same as hearing a voice on a voice box, but this is down that path. This is where that path could lead. People who have psychotic episodes are often unaware their delusions or hallucinations are not real, which may lead them to feel frightened or distressed. That's straightforward, isn't it? And feeling frightened and distressed and having delusions, bad combo. Confused and disturbed thoughts. This is where I would say listening to the voice boxes, listening to my hell video, trying to find a voice within it can confuse and disturb your thoughts. People with psychosis sometimes have disturbed, confused and disruptive patterns of thoughts. Signs of this include rapid and constant speech, disturbed speech, for example, they may switch from one topic to another mid-sentence, or a sudden loss in the train of thought, resulting in an abrupt pause in a conversation or activity. But if you're not talking to people, or like me today, rapid and constant speech is a feature of our broadcast. If you're not talking to people, it's going on in your head, and you don't know how much it's really going on. When you're listening into this voice box or video, then what's your mind playing with? What's it doing? Is it getting confused? You know, are they rapid changes? Is it easy to acknowledge that? It's hard, isn't it? Postnatal psychosis is very specific, of course, if you've had a baby. So we're not doing an episode on psychosis, we're doing an episode on ghosts. I'm going to skip over that, but it's there. Psychosis is not the same as psychopath. I've been saying this a lot because I've read it earlier. The term psychosis and psychopath should not be confused. Someone with psychosis has a short-term acute condition that, if treated, can often lead to a full recovery. So this is something that really is important for you to take from this person who was hearing voices in my video. It's short-term condition. It can be treated, full recovery. It's probably indicative of something else. You might be under some kind of stress in your life. You know, there might be something else that's causing you to have these I don't want to say delusions and psychoses in the strong way, but confusions. That the reason you're listening to these things and looking for these voices is, you know, a knock-on effect of something else. It might be that, and it might also be that we can really fix this up quite quick for you, and that being mentally healthy, watch all the other videos on this channel, being mentally healthy is, you know, is not listening to that thing for an hour and a half, but instead going for a walk. And you can work on and improve that aspect of your life, and you don't have to go down this road. It's fine. A psychopath is someone with an antisocial personality disorder, which means they lack empathy, they're manipulative, and they often have a total disregard for the consequences of their actions. That's not you, so don't worry. People with an antisocial personality can pose a threat to others because they can be violent. Most people with psychosis are more likely to harm themselves than others. That's big, isn't it? That's big. You often think of someone being mad and being fractious and wild, and you, as I said earlier, you worry for their safety and other people's, but they're more likely to harm themselves than anyone else. So that's worth considering. This is Rethink. Usually we use Mind, and Mind have got a really good page on psychosis, but we're going to use that when we do the psychosis episode. Psychosis is a term to describe when you experience reality in a different way to other people. Go to web browser so you can see it a bit better. In a different way to other people. So again, it's not being really like severe in its critique here, is it? It's not saying like psychosis means you're mad and you experience reality in a different way. And we've all got senses, and our senses are all maybe slightly different. We talk about, do you see the same green as I see, and do I see the same red, and if a tree falls to the ground, all that business. You know, we experience reality in slightly different ways. Psychosis is a different way to experience it. Common examples are hearing voices or believing people are trying to harm you. It can be a one-off experience or linked to other conditions. There's no single cause of psychosis. Researchers believe that environment and genetics may affect who develops psychosis. I'm going to sort of big up a point here. Lots of people say that smoking marijuana gives you psychosis. Other people say that smoking marijuana with a predisposal to psychotic conditions gives you, like, you're genetically predisposed, you have the trigger, it's boom. I've been in an experience with maybe stronger substances than just marijuana, and I can categorically say that if you push the boundaries of your thinking, of your mind, of your experience and senses, then they can open up the door to things that can lead you to confusions and bad things. So absolutely, that people can develop psychosis because of triggers, and you can trigger that through narcotics because you're messing with that wiring sort of thing. So it's not just environment and genetics, it's also, you can trigger it. And that can also be a trauma as well, can't it? It can be a trauma, something really difficult, some kind of stress. You should be offered medication and talking therapy to help with your experiences. To access treatment, you usually need to have an assessment by a specialist mental health service, such as the community mental health team. Fair play. You know, go and see the doctor, have a chat. You may need to go to the hospital if you're experiencing very distressing psychotic symptoms. These are where you see or hear things that other people don't. So hearing voices, seeing things which people don't see, feeling someone touching you, smelling things which other people can't. Hearing voices is the most common form. So going back to this talk box, it's common. It's the most common form of psychosis. If you're listening to a thing, you know, for hours, trying to, you know, if you're pushing your mind in that way, discovering the most common symptom of a, you know, what am I trying to say? If you're listening to a talk box or my hell soundscape, like my hell soundscape was designed to put on in the background as a bit of a joke. Maybe some people might use it for Dungeons and Dragons. If you're listening to it to see if you can hear a voice from another plane, if you're, you know, concentrating on it, you know, delving into it like that with your mind, if you're pushing your brain like that, hypervigilance, it's no surprise that you're going to end up hearing a voice. It's the most common form of hallucination. And as we've seen before, it's not just hallucinations. You're pre-programmed to try and hit to make sense of those sounds and to turn them into voices. The voices may be male or female, so they don't have to be your voice. They can be someone you know or someone you've never heard. They can be in a different language or accent. They can be whispering, oh, not ASMR, or shouting, or negative and disturbing. Of course, you might hear voices sometimes or all the time. Contact us. The delusions are covered here again. Secret agents, people out to get you, people monitoring you, special powers. Seems to fit a theme. Paranoia there. Cognitive experiences. Cognitive experiences are ones that relate to mental action, such as learning, remembering and functioning. Some cognitive experiences associated with psychosis are concentration problems, memory problems, unable to understand new information and difficulty making decisions. So I wanted to raise that as well. That's a bit different, isn't it? A bit different. But if you recognise any of those other things in your life, worry. Don't worry. But, you know, it could be that these other things, they sound like stress to me. They sound like these other things, forgetting things, having trouble concentrating, stress in my life, you know, made me feel like that. Yeah. It's the same reason I see UFOs everywhere. I'm pushing my brain and I want to see... Yeah. That's true, yeah. We make sense of these things, don't we? We make some sense. Just wanted you to look out for those cognitive experiences as well. Wanted you to look out for those. What mental health conditions are linked with psychosis? Psychosis can be a one-off experience. It can be a part of a long-term mental health condition. Other symptoms, like depressive symptoms. It can be part of a neurological condition. So it might not be psychological. It might be dementia, Alzheimer's or Parkinson's. Don't want to worry you, of course. Doggy's barking in the other room. If you can hear it, I apologise. Hang on. Engelmar! I should stop him. You know, it could be physical though. So, you know, these symptoms could be physical, brain injury, side effects of medication, an effect of drug abuse, alcohol withdrawal. And like it says here, it can also happen if you're very tired or if someone close to you has recently died. So, stresses, tiredness, they're saying it here. I've said it all episode. It could be a one-off experience. I don't want you to feel that if you left your comment on the video and now I've made this big chuffing episode on Mental Health Monday and I've edited it and put it out there and I've made a note on you true binaural, I'm really going to strain this week to make an ASMR video because I want to put this video on you true binaural and ASMR for you. But I don't want people to think that he just dumps stuff on true binaural. We've got our own channel now, Mental Health Monday. So I want to put this there, but I want to put a whisper video so they can at least, you know, they can say, okay, fair enough, we had to listen to this Mental Health Monday, but we got the whisper video as well. So I want to do that. But if you're watching this on YouTube and I've raised all these concerns, I've made you worry, haven't I? We're going to fix it. We're going to, you're going to get help. You're going to take a break. It can be a one-off experience. I don't want to worry you unnecessarily. I don't want you to think that you're some kind of... I've made this point all the way through. You're not some kind of super loser, some madhead. We all suffer from stress. We all have hallucinations. It can be one-off. We can fix it. We can deal with it. We can make it better. I'm not in your life. I don't see all the things in your life. I've just got your one little comment. But I know, because you're human and I'm human, that we're suffering the same things. We're worried about the same things. We're struggling with the same things. We're all having to pay our bills. We're all having to wake up and, feel like we're not good enough. We're all having to do that. We're all having to look in the mirror and wish that we were 10 foot taller and teeth were shiny whiter, and all of us are struggling these same things. So I know you're struggling the same way as I am. So I'm not trying to say that you're down there and we help you up. We help together to pull together, and I want you to feel that it's okay. I've got that video, haven't I? It's okay, but this is okay. If it's happening, it's natural. It's something we can fix. It could be something more serious, in which case, we can look at that. You probably don't have a brain injury. You probably don't have a brain tumour. Okay, you probably don't. It's more likely that you're tired and stressed, and it's more likely you've got this other media that's giving you these ideas, and then the talk box is being sold on its ability to talk to ghosts, so they want to promote that and they want to show you the evidence and the thing, and you're confused, and we've been through all this, haven't we? It's more likely that. So it's fixable. More sleep, more walking, more social time, mental health improvement. We've got videos about it on our channel, that sort of thing. So that's my final point there. We all have a little something, no shame. Yeah, exactly. We're all human and we've all got brains, and this is how our brains work. Or sometimes, sometimes they don't. And you think that's the end, but it's not. I've got to show you these final three, because I researched them. So I've got to show you these final three, and we've got another half hour of episode. This is University of Oxford practical ethics. This is like top thinkers. So I'm glad they're thinking about it. What if what I've said is all rubbish, and actually there really are demons talking through your talk box? Is there anything wrong with entertaining the possibility? Someone printed a paper to say, no, you're allowed to have your own ideas. There's nothing wrong with it. Someone printed that as a paper. So, of course, the scientific community has rallied round and critiqued their paper. And whilst IMRAC concludes it's time for medical professionals to consider the possibility of demonic possession in the etiology of schizophrenia, and it would be useful for medical professionals to work together with faith healers, they suggested that. So the rebuttal here is that it's a dumbfounding argument. It's shocking to find it published in a post-medieval peer-reviewed journal. Lest anyone suspect me of being unfairly prejudiced against the possibility of demons, let me point out that even those who describe to a demonic metaphysics should not be persuaded by the argument. So there's a lot in this that you can pull apart there. I'll copy and paste it into chat, and I will put it in the description of the video. This one, and again, I'm just going to light over it. This one, what it's actually saying is that a delusion is pathological. And what they mean by that is, in simple English, is that it's a dysfunction, like a disorder of your brain or your body that's causing the delusion. That some delusions are not like a psychological idea that's got out of hand, but that you might have, the blood clot or the whatever. And they've done studies where people have got these problems, whatever it be, could be like a brain damage or something like that. And they've shown that it can lead to a delusional belief. So they're saying, basically, they're talking about treating schizophrenia, and they're basically, this is me summing up a huge research. Look at it. Look, it's big. This is me summing all this up. Is that, let's not, as doctors and healthcare professionals, I'm not a doctor, but let's not, as doctors and healthcare professionals, let's not suggest that, let's not be naive to the idea there could be a physical malfunction. So when someone comes in with psychotic delusions, it's quite normal for us to say that's a mental disorder. Let's treat it along the mental. I've suggested, walks, mental health, all this sort of stuff, medication. But it could be that all that, one quick brain scan, we could find the result, and it could be a real physical, pathological thing. So let's not forget to do the brain scan, is what they're basically saying. Delusions as harmful malfunctioning beliefs, it's called. And they're also saying that I might have got that wrong, bear in mind, I've only been reading this today, but I think they're also saying that if you have this dysfunction and you have a God, I'm trying to sum up quite a lot of interesting reading that I've done. If you've got a misfunction in your brain or a psychological misfunction, the delusion itself can lead to you causing yourself harm. So it can be like a disease or a pathological, it can be pathological means it's the thing that's causing you harm. So having a delusional belief is not a problem, is it? Like, in theory, I believe something silly, so what? But it can cause you harm in your life, in your mental and physical state. So that's the fundamental summing up of that paper. It's there, it's in the chat, and it'll be in the description below. And final one, if you're seeing some things that aren't there, how would you know? It's important to ask yourself a few questions to find out, is something more serious going on? Does this happen often? Are you sure no one else is seeing it? This might sound weird, but it's important to check your reality. Does seeing strange things bother you? Do you experience other things that are weird or hard to explain, like hearing voices or feeling like people are watching you? If the answer to the above questions are yes, you might be struggling with the early signs of psychosis. Surprise, surprise, is what we've been talking about all chuffing episode, isn't it? What should I do next? Take a mental health screen, manage your stress, get enough sleep, get treatment. What a really nice little simple, boom. That's that article, Mental Health America, boom. Nice little simple one. I really hope we've helped someone. That's the main thing, isn't it? And not just one person, but by talking about this general topic, by opening up these ideas, by making sure that we clearly state that this is not something that makes you a loner or a loser or some mad psychotic in a room. This is something that we all suffer with, that we all have experience with, and can all learn something from. We can all fall to this at any moment through grief. Grief's important because it's directly losing a loved one, and you're going to want to keep contact with them, and we need to feel this spiritual connection through the world, and that can be wholesome, and it can be part of the grieving process, and it can really help. But just like we saw that losing yourself down a rabbit hole of any kind can be detrimental, it can also open these doors to the lead into psychosis. Some of us are more susceptible to psychosis naturally, genetically. Some of us find the environmental factors push us that way. The mix can be any combination of whatever, but if you see things that you're not sure what you're seeing, if you hear things you're not sure what you're hearing, then my best advice is give yourself a mental health checkup and ensure 100 million % that you're doing the best things to improve and sustain your mental health. And then after all that, we can maybe look at these voices again, maybe listen to the recorder thing again, as long as it's not detrimental to our mental health, and make some decisions then. Maybe we'll think about it differently at the end of that journey. But I just want to make sure that, like I said, we've helped not just one person, but anyone that's suffering with this. It was important this week because it's been left as a comment on the video. I've addressed it in the comments, made this. Thumbs up. I'm happy with that. I'm happy with that. I'm happy with you. I'm happy with this. Oh. Yeah, it's been good, hasn't it? It actually has been good, hasn't it? It's been a good one. I'm a good one. You're a good one. And if you can't be good, you're naughty.